Hello sir, hello classmates. So yung gagawin po natin is yung midterm number 5. Punta tayo dito sa lab, developing SQL databases. So, manage isolation levels. Ito yung midterm number 5. So, click natin. Click start. Excuse me. Click next. Power on the Plab SQL 01. Exercise 1. Managing concurrency with read uncommitted. An isolation level protects a specified transaction from other transactions to prevent problems that can arise due to concurrent access of data. A transaction in its SQL server ensures that a group of operations is processed as a unit. For example, you can define a banking transaction and perform data modification to credit one account and debit another as a single unit of work. If the transaction succeeds, all the modifications that you made in the transaction are committed in the database. In the case of the failure of your transaction that must be rolled back, all your changes to the data are erased. Each transact SQL statement such as insert, update, or delete is executed as a transaction and is an implicit transaction and user-defined or explicit transactions. You need to group the statements of the transaction between a begin transaction and a commit transaction close. In case if the transaction fails, you can provide the rollback transaction statement to erase all data modifications made from the beginning of the transaction. You can set the transaction isolation level for all transactions in a session. Setting the transaction isolation level helps you to specify the default locking behavior for all statements in a session. In other words, you can use locks to prevent update conflicts. When you are in the process of changing data, you can prevent other users from reading or modifying the data. For example, consider you are calculating the average of a set of value in a group and you want to ensure that the other transactions do not modify the set of data in the group. In such cases, you can request the SQL server to hold locks on the data. The common types of locks include shared. In general, read operations acquire shared lock. When transaction acquires shared lock on a resource, another transaction can also acquire a shared lock even though the first transaction has not completed. Exclusive. In general, write operations acquire an exclusive lock. Data modification statements such as insert, update, and delete use the exclusive lock. Update. The SQL server applies update locks in the rows when they are selected. Excuse me. When the transaction isolation level is set to the highest, the locks are held longer and are more restrictive. The different transaction isolation levels included. Rel committed. This option specifies that statements cannot read data that has been modified but not committed by other transactions. Setting this level directs SQL Server to use shared logs while reading if read underscore committed underscore snapshot is set to off. Read uncommitted. This option specifies that statements can read data that has been modified and are not committed by other transactions. This is the least isolation level. This is similar to setting no lock on all tables and also select statements in a transaction. Repeatable read. This option specifies that statements cannot read data that has been modified but not committed by other transactions, and other transactions cannot modify data that has been read by the current transaction until the current transaction completes. Setting this level directs the SQL server to use shared locks until the end of the transaction. Snapshot. This option, this option specifies that only the data modifications that are made by other transactions before the beginning of the current transaction are visible to the statements in the current transaction. However, the data modifications made by other transactions after the beginning of the current transactions are not visible to the statements in the current transaction. Setting this option does not request locks when reading data except during recovery of the database. Serializable. This option prevents other users from updating or inserting rows that match the condition in the where clause of the transaction. In this exercise, we'll demonstrate transaction by setting isolation level to read uncommitted. Task 1. Demonstrate read uncommitted isolation level. In this task, you will perform the following actions. Execute an update statement that updates the row and the dim product table for the product K110 and rollbacks the transaction after a wait time of 20 seconds. Execute a select query simultaneously with the update statement. The select query reads the record for the same product K401 by setting the isolation level as read uncommitted. Demonstrate that due to the read uncommitted isolation level, the select query would read the modified value by the update transaction that was not yet committed, however, rolled back after a 20 seconds delay. Step 1. Ensure you have powered on the required devices and connect to FlapSQL 01. Step 2. Run the FlapSQL 01 desktop, click Start and click Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. The Connect to Server dialog box appears. From the Server drop-down list, click the Database Engine. The server name text box, type FlapSQL 01, click Connect. So, hanapin natin yung Microsoft SQL 2016 and click Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. Click Connect. The SQL Server Management Studio windows opens. An Object Explorer expanded databases folder. To select the database from the list of databases, select AdventureWorks DW 2016 CTP3. To create a new query from the query ribbon, click New Query. The New Query pane opens. Type the following query in the New Query pane. Paste. To run the query, click Execute or press F5. Step 7. To create a new query from the query ribbon, click New Query. Type the following query in the New Query pane. Copy and paste. To run the query, click Execute or press F5. Step 8. To create a new query from the query ribbon, click New Query. Type the following query in the New Query pane. given query updates the value of list price in product underscore theme for the product key parameter. The query uses begin transaction statement and updates the new product theme to table on the Adventure City page using the rule blockchain after a 20 seconds delay. Step 9. To create a new query from the query ribbon, click New Query. Press F5 to execute query in step 8 and within 10 seconds execute the above select query in the step 9. Step 10. Navigate to the query pane that contains the update transaction specified in step 8. Find the rollback run statement executing successfully after 20 seconds. The numbers of rows affected by the transaction will be shown only after the process completes. Next, exercise 2. Managing concurrency with a repeatable read. In this exercise, we will manage concurrency using a repeatable read isolation level. Task 1. Demonstrate repeatable reads with select statements. In this task, we will perform the following actions. Select all the columns values from dim product for the product K401 by setting the isolation label as repeatable read and rollback the transaction after a wait time of 20 seconds. The repeatable read isolation label specifies that no other transaction can modify the record with, with the product K401 until the execution of the select statement in the current transaction completes. Update the content of dim product for the product K401 by setting the isolation label as repeatable read. Demonstrate that due to the repeatable read isolation label set for the select transaction, the update transaction is forced to wait for 20 seconds because of the explosive lock used on the product K401 row until the select transaction completes the process. Step 1. Type the following statement in a new query in the new window to read records from day 401. Copy and paste. Step 2. To create a new query from the query ribbon, click New Query. Step 3. First, you have to execute the query in step 1 within the 10 seconds. Execute the update query in step 2. Step 3. Step 4. Navigate to the query window that contains a select query in step 1. The query step 1 will display the old committed values before after the 20 seconds. Task 2. Demonstrate repeatability. The insert statement this task will perform the following actions. Create a table name in product or underscore temp and import records from the dim product. Select records from dim product underscore temp by setting the isolation level as repeatable read to ensure that no other data until the execution of the select statement in the current transaction completes. Execute an insert query by inserting a new record to demonstrate that the new rows are not locked by the select transaction with the repeatable read isolation type. Step 1. Type the following query in a new query window. Press F5 to execute the query. Step 2. Type the following statement in a new query window to the read records from the dim product underscore temp table. Step 3. To create a new query from the query ribbon, click New Query. Copy. Press F5 to execute the query in step 2, and within 10 seconds execute the insert in query in step 3. Step 5. Navigate to the query window that contains the select transaction in step 1 and step 2. The query in step 2 would display the old existing values before the new insert after 20 seconds. Task 3. Demonstrate repeatable read with update statements. In this task, we will perform the following actions. Select records from the dim product table into a temporary table named dim product underscore temp. Select records from the dim product or underscore temp table for the product case 212 and 213 by setting the isolation level as repeatable read and roll back the session after a delay of 20 seconds. Update the dim product underscore temp table for the product K214. Demonstrate that the repeatable read isolation level set on the select transaction does only lock the rows for the product case 212 and 213. Hence, the update transaction executes immediately as it updates only the contents of the product A214. Step 1. Type the following query in a new query window. Press F5 to execute the query. Step 2. Type the following statement in a new query window to read records from the dim product underscore temp. Copy and paste. Step 3. To create a new query from the query ribbon, click New Query. Type the following statement in the new query window to update the list price column value for the product K214 in the team product underscore team table. Press F5 execute the query in step 2. Step 5. Navigate the query window that contains the selection section in Step 2. The query in Step 2 will display the resultant records in the results pane after 20 seconds. Next, click Done. Power off the floppy scale 01. Click Exit. Cancel. That's all for today. Thank you.